The squirrel was magic! I just realized how catchy our theme song was, so here I am dancing. Hi guys, it's Animankai, just a little dumber. This is Mark, as usual. This is Andrew, as usual. If you're watching this during E3, thank you. I'm glad that we have your attention, even though E3 is going on. So that's an honor. Anyway, this is going to be more of a Kaiju show than normal. So this is going to be the Andrew show more than it's going to be the Mark show this week. I'm going to try to chime in here and there, and I'll pretty much be like part of the chat with you guys, just asking him questions constantly, because this is way more his forte. Normally we talk more about anime and manga, and with a little bit of Kaiju, but I'm, if you didn't know, based on the earlier podcast, if you guys haven't seen them, I'm just purely anime and manga more so. He's anime and manga too, but he's got like this vast Kaiju knowledge that I'm not as privy to. But I've seen some Kaiju movies. I've went to go see ones with him, and
yeah, I think those are about the only ones that you've seen, are the ones that I've taken you to see.
But I'm totally up for going like to watch the older ones if like Andrew ever wants to let me borrow them or something. But
you've never asked, so I could give it all to you right now.
I'll do it. But but anyway, before we get started with that, let's show off the figures we brought.
Yes. All right. Well, as I brought a few weeks ago, I have one of my Naruto creations of one of the tailed beasts. This time I brought my very first one that I ever made, which was Naruto when he's in his four tails rage mode form. Mm-hmm. Which, obviously, it's like, I know it's not the greatest, but it's the very first thing I ever made, so that's why it's a little iffy on, I guess. But I tried to mirror the picture that I found exactly. A little bit difficult with the body style because I actually used a wire frame.
He looks like I didn't notice until I just looked at, but he looks like he's like really like, his lower back's kind of like,
Yeah, that's my point, because like he has his legs and his body, they all have a wire frame, so that's why he's a little bit odd. But yeah, I tried to get that form. The tails were a pain in the ass. It's like, it's hard to see, but they've been broken off a couple of times, so I've had to reattach them. So
they still look nice.
Yeah, well, I hope they do anyway. So yeah, I still got him. And then we got another one that I brought, which I guess is going to move him, is Saris Victoria from Hellsing.
Hellsing.
And it's of her after she lost her arm and became a full-fledged vampire.
Yeah, and never gets the arm back.
Never gets the arm back. She can make an arm shape out of this vampiric material, but she can't remake her full arm, which is probably because she didn't awaken to be a full-on vampire until she lost her arm.
Yeah, it's still surprising to me considering how crazy regeneration is in Hellsing.
Yeah, but to be honest, the vampires that are in Hellsing, the only one we ever actually see regenerate anything is Alucard.
But she's like Alucard's main... I almost said squeeze, but they have no kind of relationship like that.
No.
But she's Alucard's like apprentice, so I'm surprised she doesn't
Underling,
have a little regeneration.
Well, she does. Remember, she regenerated that fact that she lost her eyes?
And she has a cowboy living in her arm, too. Let's not forget that.
I think it's just so much in her body, not so much just her arm.
Yeah.
And then the other one I brought is from a game, Monster Hunter. And
Which he has not played.
I have not played. So actually, for this, I'll let Mark explain a little bit about him, because I know absolutely nothing about him. I only bought him because he looked interesting.
So that's Rathalos. He's a he's like the flagship monster of basically the entire Monster Hunter series. If you see Monster Hunter, one of the first creatures, if not the first creature you think of, is Rathalos, because he's basically the most popular monster, since you don't know that. But yeah, it looks really nice. It looks good. I've played a lot of Monster Hunter games, and I think the craftsmanship is top tier.
It's very well done.
So I mean, he breathes fire and stuff. There's not a whole lot to say, but he's a very, very popular, if not the most popular Monster Hunter monster.
He's just like a standard dragon, pretty much.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's like the female variation's name is Rathian, and he's Rathalos. So there's lots of draconic monsters in Monster Hunter, but I guess they would be I guess if you want to call it the baseline dragons. They were in the first games, like the very first Monster Hunters that came out, like back in the PlayStation 1 era. So you could call them the standard dragon, but really, there's no such thing as a standard dragon in Monster Hunter. It's just kind of a large variety of dragons. So
okay,
but yeah,
all right.
Rathalos is gorgeous.
Yeah. So yeah, just a figure that I brought in that I liked, but I knew nothing about.
Yeah, he's gonna be getting into Monster Hunter
I will.
Soon, though.
I will. Yes.
Because at first he was like, I don't want to do Monster Hunter because you can't use the monsters, but I convinced him otherwise that it's still worth playing. We can use the same camera for Gintoki?
I guess we can. All right.
I'll let you hold him.
All right.
This is Gintoki Sakata, the main character of Gintama, my favorite series. He's awesome. The reason I brought him, honestly, is just because we're talking about kaijus. This is the biggest figure I have. I figured Anchi would actually be bringing a lot of large kaiju figures. It didn't happen, really. So I actually wound up having, like, the biggest figure here. But, yeah, he's big because we're talking about big things. And if you don't know, Gintama is just a comedy series. It's amazing. Go watch it. Don't have too much to say about the figure other than the fact that he doesn't really have a stand. He's got this weird little thing on the back of his leg that serves as the stand to keep him standing.
I think that's probably just because they didn't want to give him a stand, so that's all they gave him.
Yeah, his sword comes out. Like, can I take it out? Well, it comes out anyway. It fell out. Yeah, this is great. This is great commentary right here. And also, I think like his paint job's really good, but like the upper part of his head's kind of like, it's like a dark brown. It's weird. But yeah,
it could just be the thing.
It's a good figure. Came in 2 parts, so it was like a smaller box than you would expect for something so tall. But alas, that is the figures we brought this time. So, I guess specifically what we're talking about with kaiju's this time is just kind of like the chronological history of the kaiju medium, starting from before even Godzilla. But as I said, he's the kaiju man, so I'll let him take off with it, because he did some research for this video, and he knows his stuff. So, go take it away.
For starting off, a lot of these old-time things, like specifically like Ray Harryhausen and all of his famous stuff, I only found one that was a kaiju-related one that predated Godzilla, and that was the Rhedosaurus. Like, it's a fairly old-school type movie, but it's still an interesting thing as far as the kaiju thing. It's a creature that is frozen, I think, if I remember right, in Antarctica, and he gets thawed out he didn't get thawed out. He got awoken because they did an atomic testing.
Yeah, so he's even got the radiation thing.
Yeah, he's pretty much has the Godzilla origin story.
We have a picture of him up there too.
Yeah, he's just a quadrupedal T-Rex type creature. And his story is pretty standard thing. He gets thawed out. He travels across the ocean. He destroys things in his wake, and then he comes to old school New York.
Standard nowadays. Back in the day, that was probably like a crazy concept. Like, whoa, a
really
radioactive monster? Yeah. Mind blowing. Who would think of such a thing?
Yeah, and it introduced another style that Ray Harryhausen was very well known for, claymation, which is just a clay sculpture of a creature, a person, or whatever, and just they use frame by frames, which is painstaking. It could take up to hours just to get 2 seconds worth of film.
For modern day audiences, basically think Nightmare Before Christmas.
Basically, yeah.
if you've seen if the most popular claymation animation of all time is most likely Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of animation, if you're not familiar with the actual term.
Yep. And his movie overall was really well. He kind of had Godzilla's same effect on things. Like wherever he left radiation in his wake and things like that. And he was eventually killed, but killed off kind of with needing to be shot with some kind of bacterial agent that they found from using his own bloodstream, which was an interesting effect on him. And he ended up dying in an amusement park in a Ferris wheel thing after it caught on fire. So he basically, the poison slowed his body down and everything, and then the fire, he basically burned to death or his body was burned after he died.
So did he like go out of his way to terrorize towns and whatnot, or was it just a result of him being a giant, uncontrollable monster?
Kind of both. Like he was just trying to go through because New York happened to be the ancestral place of his breeding ground.
Oh.
So he just wanted to go, he just was essentially just going back home.
Mm-hmm.
But with everything in his way, he felt threatened, so he just attacked. And then that's about it there is for Rhedosaurus. Mm-hmm.
But he laid the groundwork.
He laid the groundwork, and he came out in 1953, only 2 years before the Big G himself.
Nice.
Which...
And then Toho was... So the creator of that guy, that was like an American?
Yep.
Yeah, so Americans originated kaijus.
Pretty much.
And they get mad when we make our own versions of Godzilla. We started it.
But we didn't.
We didn't popularize it or make it famous.
We didn't popularize it, and we also didn't butcher one of the most famous ones.
That's true.
Referencing 1998, which we may touch on him. I don't know if he's worthy enough to even be in this, but we shall see.
He has babies in it. He might as well be a girl. But
it's asexual, so it's both.
Just like I found out that Komodo dragons reproduce asexually.
They can, yes. And then
very important fact.
These ones are going to be after Godzilla, but they're still early on ones. Another one is the giant behemoth. His story, I've seen his movie. I'm not 100% full on familiar with him, but kind of the same sort of storyline. He's a giant creature. He comes up from the depths of the ocean and just proceeds
like the Loch Ness monster. He kind of looks like the Loch Ness monster based on the picture.
In a way, he kind of is. But yeah, instead of New York, he attacks London.
Clock Tower.
Yep, he'd taken down Big Ben.
Mm-hmm. Oh, poor thing. I like that tower.
Like I said, I'm not 100% familiar on the giant behemoth, but it was a pretty good movie. It was still claymation. I don't think he was done by Ray Harryhausen, but
it wasn't Toho either, though.
Yeah, no, it was. These first few are
American.
Yeah, these first few are Americans. And then, like I said, unfortunately, I don't remember too much about the giant behemoth, but it still was a great movie. And then after him, we got another early on one. He was a colorized one, and it's...
Oh, so this is the first non-black and white one? Wait, but Godzilla was black and white at first, so...
Right, like I was saying, these ones...
Predated
like, the giant behemoth actually came out after Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
But these are just some of the earlier on ones covering American-based ones.
Oh, okay. We're just not going into Godzilla yet.
Yeah.
We saving the good stuff for later.
Yeah, and I did misspoke. There's still one more that was before the colorized one, and that's 20,000 Miles to Earth, which features the monster, the Ymir.
Ah, Ymir.
Ymir, whatever.
Attack on Titan fan here. I always have to say like Ymir, bro.
I did the same thing when I looked him up last night.
Yeah.
But he's just an alien. He crash lands from Mars, and when he first shows up, he's not much bigger than a person. But after it takes a few hours or days or something like that, but he keeps growing as they try to imprison him.
Yeah, see, the more you talk about it, the more I really think they're all based on the same mythological Ymir. Because I'm pretty sure in actual mythology, Ymir was from Mars and it was a god who grew and turned into a giant or something. So I think they're both drawing from the same Attack on Titan and this.
Possibly
drawing from the same mythology there.
It could be, but yeah, I guess that he could have. They did say that he could keep on growing, but when they took him down, he was only as big as an elephant, and he did end up fighting an elephant,
and he won. No.
Well, yeah.
I would hope so.
But it doesn't act, I mean, it doesn't seem like an interesting fight. It's like, oh, it's a creature only as big as an elephant. It fights one. It has arms, a tail, and everything like that. So what good would the elephant do? But no, it actually was able to fight pretty well because it doesn't weigh as much as it looks. Like, it can pick up people and throw them, but it had a very hard time messing with the elephant. It tried to pick up the elephant and tip it over, which it eventually did, but he had to get running starts. And then after that, he ended up climbing. I think this one took place in Rome, and he ended up climbing the Roman Colosseum.
And you said still claymation?
Still claymation.
So once again, they're like, it's probably technical limitations too, why they had to make it an elephant for an opponent. Like,
yeah,
it's like, yeah, but it's 1950 something still, right? 1960s at this point, maybe.
Yeah, I think he was somewhere around the 60s.
Yeah, so you can't really make them fight.
Right.
They probably didn't create like a model for a small city. So, I mean, when you're in claymation, the only way to make a creature appear giant is to have a small city model.
No, actually.
Right?
They actually had screens, or they actually had shots from actual Rome, and they just placed him over top of the scenes.
Well, yeah.
That's how claymation is usually done. They take actual environments and just put in the creature.
No, I know that. I was just saying if you want a creature to appear giant...
Oh, yeah.
Then you need to make a model for like a small city or whatever. They probably just didn't have a small city model, so the biggest thing they could have them fight was an elephant.
Which actually was still cool, because they actually, up until it showed up with the Yimmer, the elephant actually was in there, was an actual elephant.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they had that so you could see the scale, and they made it the scale of this Roman elephant.
Although, considering it's like the 1960s and they were had like a trained elephant, I feel bad. They probably like abused the elephant.
Well,
you never know. Circus elephant.
And then another one that was another Harryhausen one is the Valley of Guanji, which is still kind of in terms of some of these other ones, it's kind of a cheapo little one, but it's still really good as far as what I think for just the scope of what they did.
And this was still pre-color?
No, Valley of Guanji was colored.
Oh, I didn't even see the picture. Oh yeah, he's very blue.
He's very blue, and I know people think, like, okay, it's a T-Rex, and bad-looking T-Rex, but no, Guanji was an Allosaurus. Not as big, but still very formidable.
And so he's, like, in modern day, though? Like, he survived the...
He was this takes place in kind of a Western-type thing, still modern day, but majority with, like, cowboys going to this hidden gorge, and that's why it's called the Valley of Guanji, because he rules it.
Oh.
And when they tried to finally get out of the valley, run away and everything, Guanji pursued them and tried to do what he always would do, kill.
He's territorial as hell.
Pretty much. And he did finally get through the barrier, but he ended up knocking himself out and getting stuck in a rock slide. So they caught him. Typical thing, they see it, they can't just leave it or take it back, they have to take it with them for proof.
'Cause humans!
Yeah, because we're stupid.
If you learn anything from kaiju movies, it's that humanity is evil and we ruin the environment and everything is our fault.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
That is the message in a nutshell for every kaiju movie ever. So
they take him back. I can't remember exactly where they took him, but they take him to a city again, and they try to put him... It was kind of another Colosseum-like place, and they try to use him as a gladiator-type creature, which did not work. He broke free, and then once again, he fought an elephant, which he did not take very long to take him down.
And we're still claymation. So
we're still claymation.
The elephant was just the claymation enemy.
Pretty much. And kind of a bit of a sad ending motif for him. They lured him into an ancient church, and since they couldn't kill him, they burned the church down with him inside.
Damn, bro. Get killed by religion.
Pretty much. It kind of was sad because he was trying to get out, but some of the fire like burned the cheaple on top or whatever.
Oh, the
chapel.
The
chapel. Yeah,
chapel.
My bad. Chapel. Burned the chapel,
cheaple?
and it fell in and collapsed on him, so he literally had to just stay there as he burned alive.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so that really
was probably the last of his kind.
From the crater, yeah, he pretty much was the last Allosaurus. But yeah, that was still a pretty good movie for its time. And then we go to another one that, unfortunately, nobody really likes, and probably hardly anybody even remembers.
And we're still English. We're still American shows right now.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is Reptilicus.
Reptilicus. The most original name.
Yeah. This one I only ever saw once because it was that bad. but it's still a predecessor for kaijus. His design is interesting, but not very well thought out. Like, the only redeeming factor about him is that he can spit acid. He can't fly, despite him having wings.
Might have been hard for claymation to make.
He's not claymation.
Oh, we in costume mode now? We finally hitting costumes?
There's not a person in the costume. It's just like somebody has a string on the end of a snake thing.
Really?
Yeah, Reptilicus is literally just a snake.
So is this the first time they used city models to make the creature appear bigger?
Yep.
So he pioneered something.
He did, although this was the American one. This is way after Godzilla.
Okay. Well, okay. Okay, then they pioneered it for the US or for America then.
Yeah. Which, it still worked out, but unfortunately Reptilicus just was not that good. In fact, they tried to bring it over to the States from the, I think it was I told you, it was a French show or a British show or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the States refused to even air it because it was that bad.
Not even in special theaters.
Not even special theaters. So they had to tweak it so much, and they just made it worse. Reptilicus really was just horrible. I don't even remember how it ends. It was that bad.
You only seen it once?
Yeah, I only seen it once. And I do know that they killed him, but I don't remember how they killed him.
Was he another radioactive kind of creature?
See, I don't even remember his origin.
Jeez.
Yeah,
he was a snake and he hated people.
No, he's a dragon. He has legs. They're just very, very short, and the way the picture shows, it's hard to see because I couldn't find a very clear one. When he rears up like that, his front legs come up with him. So he really has nothing going on for him.
He's beautiful.
Oh my god, he really was just dumb. Yeah. And despite, I don't know what's going on with our screen right now, but another one that we're gonna go back to some Japanese stuff now.
Well, going to it for the first time.
For the first time, yes.
So we're traveling back in time. How many years now at this point?
I don't actually have a picture set up for this guy, but another thing on there is Rodan.
Oh, okay.
Rodan came out just 2 years after Godzilla actually did.
We're not going to talk about the first Godzilla first?
I think that pretty much everybody knows about the first Godzilla, so there's...
You should educate everyone.
Well, it's the same thing. Everybody that's a Godzilla fan would know about his origin.
But was it the first kaiju movie to use a guy in a costume?
Yes. Godzilla was the first one to introduce Suitmation.
Yeah, they call it Suitmation?
Suitmation.
That's interesting.
Yep, just like Claymation, they went with Suitmation.
So basically just actors and that...
Actors in a suit. Which originally, they wanted to do Claymation for Godzilla. But they didn't think they could get as good a feel vibe if they did that.
I'm sure you know about it, so just ask. So did the changing things or presenting the whole costume aspect, did that inhibit them in certain ways? Did the costumes get too hot, or was there production issues because of it?
There weren't production issues. There was some scenes that they couldn't do as what they wanted, like close-up shots. They had to actually modify it. So where when it has a close-up of his face, that's a puppet.
Oh, okay.
Full body guy in a suit. Mm-hmm. And then when it's the legs, it's literally just a guy wearing suspenders with just Godzilla's legs, so you just see them. Oh. So they compensated for everything that they could not do with claymation or with just straight up suitmation to make it look good, because it'd be difficult for a guy to bend around when you got a 50-pound head sitting on top of you.
And last question before I let you go on. Did the first movie have his breath?
It had his breath, and it was just... I think it pioneered everything, which is why it stuck with the color. It was just a fog machine, which was just a
devastating.
Which was just a white stream that went out, but it was pure radiation, which is something that has never changed. They've always kept it having that. They I don't know when they decided to finally make it blue, which I guess was in the first color version.
Oh, was it? They made it blue in the first color?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. Because they didn't... I think that they just wanted to make it that color because it kind of symbolizes radiation. Mm. But it stuck with that. Then, obviously, they killed him, everything. And then, the very next year, they did Godzilla 1955, which is Godzilla Raids Again.
Is this before or after you were bringing up Rodan?
This is before Rodan.
Okay.
But he actually came up with that in that movie. There's another Godzilla, and then the first time that they actually introduced two kaijus. It was Godzilla and what would later become his best friend in a way, Anguirus.
So they were teamed up in this one. They weren't.
No, they were enemies.
So this was the first kaiju movie, period, that actually had monster versus monster.
Right.
This is what made history. Because
this is pretty much what made what fighting monster movies are, at least in Japan.
Before that, it was just terrorizing humans.
Pretty
constantly.
much. And which is still great. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but seeing people have two monsters to fight made it interesting. And so, honestly, I kind of like the original thing because in the newer ones, the movements is kind of slowish to show size and bulk. But in that one, they were still big, but they moved real quick and with lifelike movements. So they made him look a lot better.
Now I know this is kind of out of context with the movie we're talking about, but just because you said like quick, like detailed movements, which movie was it? I know it was a lot later because it was in color. But which movie was it where Godzilla did the tail slide double kick? Because that is entertaining. I don't care what you say.
That is Godzilla versus Megalon, and that is a much later film.
It's a meme.
Yes, I know it's a meme. Gravity-defying drop kick.
Godzilla car. So.
But
back to where we were.
He has that, and they fought all across Tokyo, and then they ended up in Osaka, and
in the second movie.
Yeah, okay. Which I think was also the first time they actually destroyed a national landmark. They destroyed Osaka Castle. And it was hilarious because they actually just had Godzilla pretty much just shove Anguirus into it.
I wonder how the theaters reacted when that first happened. Because, I mean,
audience's
reaction in the first place was to like a representation of World War II or whatever was probably pretty...
Well, especially that because in the first Godzilla, they actually had... the scene where he's walking past like the same movie theater that it was being shown in, people actually thought that he was outside about to trample them to death. They thought he was real.
So basically, it's kind of the same deal as the radio show. What was
War
it?
of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds. Where people are like, "Oh, this is so legit."
Pretty much.
We got to run away from the aliens that are going to come get us. Which I understand where they were coming from. Those tapes sounded pretty. Pretty crazy.
And then they did that. Godzilla actually killed Anguirus. He ripped his throat out.
Dang, dude. Yeah. Rated R, even though it didn't exist yet.
It just, like, you knew what it did. He just went for the throat and just did that until he stopped moving. But it still was implied that he ripped his throat out. Yeah. So they took him to just some iceberg floating in the sea, which was, they weren't in Antarctica, but they were in somewhere with a lot of ice. I think maybe Alaska even. And... they had the idea, they couldn't figure out how to stop him, because it was the second Godzilla, he already had killed a monster, so they're like, what are we going to do here? How are we going to stop this thing? So they're like, well, the only thing we can do is let's try to freeze him. So they bombarded a mountainside and buried him alive in ice. They didn't kill him, but they froze him.
So what were they using, like a giant ice ray?
No, just missiles firing into a mountainside.
Oh, so...
they created an avalanche.
All right, I get you.
It took several avalanches to actually do because, like, they were saying they actually had to reload several times and then get 4 or 5 different planes to come in before they could even reach his waist.
We're still black and white here.
We're still black and white.
Oh, that must have been fun to shoot. Like, I guess
it was. And then we got to the first color Godzilla movie, which was King Kong vs. Godzilla.
So we still, like, 1 year off Rodan.
1 year off Rodan.
Okay.
Well, actually, nope. Forgot, mix that up. Rodan came out in 56. Godzilla and Kong was 62.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Rodan first.
Rodan first. And it was interesting on that because it was Toho branching off. They had never... I don't think they expected Godzilla to catch as well as he did. So they're like, okay, it did well with him and that. Then it did well with him fighting another monster. So it's like, let's try to branch away from having him in it and see if we can establish... more monsters.
Never caught on as big, but
actually, when I looked it up, like, I don't know how well they even still do it with stuff, but they had a Rotten Tomatoes rating for him. He got 70%.
I bet you that's based on like just several like future reviews, like
probably
down the line, like nostalgia reviews.
Yeah,
because I don't think they reviewed things like with a rating system.
No,
back when those came out.
No, but Rodan was still a very interesting origin for him. He's obviously he's just a pterodactyl, but his origin was pretty interesting. There's this town, a mining town, and then suddenly they cracked into a cavern inside the volcano. Or they didn't think it wasn't an active one at the time, but then they started seeing these giant mutant bugs come crawling out of it.
Oh shit.
Which is like, okay, what the crap is this thing? This is supposed to be about Rodan. What is this? And then the volcano kept getting more and more active, or whatever it's doing. And then finally the bugs started crawling back to the volcano. People went up to finally follow them because they finally got attacked by the things and actually claimed a life, so they were going to go kill these bugs. They broke back into the cavern, went deeper in, and there was an egg, which hatched. And
so the bugs were like guarding an egg?
No, they were actually there to feed it when it hatched.
Why?
They were just in there and it was warm, so they needed somewhere to be. They weren't there specifically to feed it, they just happened to be there, which became food for him.
Oh, okay, alright. The way you said it, I was like, why are the bugs working for Rodan?
No, they're not working for him. But then, yeah, Rodan, he hatched out and he wasn't as big as he is, but he was still very, very large. After a few days or whatever going on with all that, they went back to the cavern and he was gone. They didn't know where he went. And then there was some like hot spring crater thing going on. Rodan ended up breaking out of the ground, fully grown and just immense. And they went with just a solo version for him. Still very good. He was destroying cities and everything, and they finally thought they could pin him down.
Hello.
But then, hello.
Hey, it's Mom.
Ha!
I was like, who is that? Oh, it's my mom.
Hi, Mark's mom.
Hi.
And then found out that there was actually 2 Rodans. Which was still pretty interesting, the fact that there was 2. Rodan was born originally as twins. Which was still very good. They had them fighting everything. They could not pin down 2 of them. Until they finally used some means to lure them back to the volcano of their birth. And they were both swarming around because there was still a few bugs left there, so they wanted some more food. So they lured them down, and then they triggered the volcano to erupt. It went up, it singed one's wing, made it crash land, and it was burning to death. The other Rodan refused to leave its mate, so they ended up both burning to death in the place of their birth.
How romantic.
Pretty much.
Romantic monster movies. This was the first romance kaiju film.
Pretty much.
So, just, you might not, oh, what's this? Does
Damage or Damagin?
Daimajin? Well, that's good.
I'm honestly say I'm not familiar with what Damagin or whatever actually is. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, Andrew, you're the kaiju guy. How do you not know?
I know I've heard the name, but I can't.
It's Corey. If you didn't know that. Yeah.
Oh, it's Corey.
Yeah.
Explain what that is to us, Corey.
I saw Corey on there. It actually said Corey Dawson. So
it is.
Oh yeah, I see it. Daimajin.
You didn't have a picture of Rodan, did you?
No, I didn't bring a picture of him.
I was like,
No.
So you might not know the answer, but did Toho do much before they started doing kaiju flicks, or did they just like start with kaiju flicks?
Toho was started because of kaiju.
Okay.
Like Japan had done other films, but Toho is specifically kaijus.
All right.
But yeah, they did Rodan, and then I guess Rodan did so well they decided to have another Rodan be part of the main franchise. I don't know. He never explained where this other one came from, but it just was there. And then they did another solo film. They've only done 3 monsters in his franchise that ever actually had true-on solo films. Godzilla, Rodan, and then Mothra. Which, Mothra's was still pretty interesting, despite the fact that when she started off, she was just a worm, like she already is. Like she always is, her larva.
Was she had a solo film?
Yeah, Mothra had a solo film.
So she just like, would she fight?
No, she just fought the military, just like every other monster in a solo film.
I thought Mothra was all about protecting humanity.
She was. The humans stole the twin fairies that always accompany Mothra, so she went to go get them back. And
stupid humans.
Yeah, pretty much.
Once again, humans ruin everything. The kaiju
and she
plot.
finally found out where they were. She couldn't get to them per se because she was going to go into her chrysalis form, her cocoon. She leveled Tokyo Tower and used the tower as the base for her cocoon.
That's amazing.
She emerged as a full-grown moth, and she got the fairies back, but then the military actually shot her down and killed her.
But she comes back, though.
Mothra always comes back. Mothra always lays an egg, and it always hatches.
So where are we at year and, like, technology-wise here? Are we still in costumes, but what year?
Rodan was 56. Mothra was a little bit later on. When was Mothra? Like, what's this? Is this something from Corey?
No, I don't think so.
Keep
But
going.
yeah, let's keep going. We're figuring things out.
But yeah, that was just Mothra always has eggs and always comes back. I can't specifically remember when Mothra's solo film was. I want to say it was like sometime around in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But then we go on to, like I mentioned, the first color one, which was the first time that Godzilla actually fought something. Rodan and Mothra were both colored.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was
Well, that's interesting that they got to color before Godzilla did.
yeah.
What?
And then we had Godzilla and Kong, which was the first time that Kong was technically considered a kaiju.
Oh, okay, because, yeah, he was around before this.
Kong actually predated Godzilla.
Did Kong predate the first, like, American ones?
Actually, I don't think he did. I think Kong came out in 1963. It was when he first came out. Or no. I am very unfamiliar with Kong, so I'm sorry if I'm messing these up.
Sorry, all King Kong fans.
I know I said that, but I think Kong actually came out like maybe 1925. I think Kong was really
Well, he's
early.
ancient then.
He really is, but
He would beat the American ones if that's the case by like 30 years. If you're...
but they never intended him to be a kaiju. He was just supposed to be a big ape.
But he was still like climbing the tower like with the girl. Was the first King Kong movie costumes?
Nope, that was claymation as well.
Really? But
Yeah.
like that was the one where he got the girl and climbed to the top of the tower. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always Kong's motif.
Is that what he did in King Kong versus Godzilla?
Nope, he had no affiliation with a girl, nothing like that. Although he did still respond when girls scream.
I think it's interesting that King Kong's a giant monkey and he's like, yeah, human women, that's my jam. I love human women even though I'm 50 times the size of them. Whatever, you know. Kong's jolly.
They did make him the same as he always is. He's a guardian of Skull Island, and the natives worship him as a god. Mm-hmm. And this Kong and Godzilla takes place immediately after Godzilla raids again, which is the black and white one. He breaks out of the iceberg and proceeds to just level a nearby naval base, which in itself, everybody's freaking out because they obviously remember Godzilla. Mm-hmm. So they're like, we need something to deal with him.
Call in Kong.
Well, they didn't actually know about Kong. They sent an expedition just to go find this island just to see what was going on.
I don't know, can you see that?
We can see a little black bar. No, go over a little more. Oh, other way.
Down.
Yeah, that way.
Opposable thumbs, baby. Hot stuff.
Okay, I do remember that guy.
That's what Corey was talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess you could say, yes, he is a kaiju, but not so much one that would ever fight in Godzilla's
I'll
franchise.
pull it up on the...
Corey brings up a good point, though. I mean,
Yeah.
Kong's got opposable thumbs. How's Godzilla fight opposable thumbs?
Godzilla has thumbs, too.
Not opposable thumbs.
Yeah, they are.
Are they? Can he grasp?
Yes.
He's calling you out, Corey. Or
Godzilla has thumbs. He only has 3 fingers, but then he has a thumb. So, granted, Kong has 2 extra fingers. Doesn't much matter when Godzilla trumps Kong in pretty much every fashion.
Then again, humanity's got opposable thumbs and we're on top of the world because of it.
Yeah, but we haven't met Godzilla yet. So if he ever shows up, we would be at the bottom of the food chain in a heartbeat.
We got guns.
That photo I showed you, it's down the bottom right-hand corner now.
Okay.
The viewers know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, they sent them just to examine this island, and it was this guy's last chance to do something because he was about to get fired from his job, and he discovers Kong, and they're like, let's bring him back. We need to... They didn't actually want him to fight Godzilla. They just wanted him for a attraction to be like, look at this guy. This guy's here. Godzilla's old news. And so they bring him back. He gets loose.
He was the
No
Jack
surprise.
Black equivalent of this movie.
I guess you could say that. Brought him back, and Kong gets loose, obviously. Mm-hmm. And Kong and Godzilla meet at some kind of crater cliff area. And it's funny, in the beginning, they only have a quick little sparring session, but they're nowhere even near each other. The only thing that Kong can actually do is beat his chest and throw boulders at him, which, in a way, pisses off Godzilla. So Godzilla hits him with his breath, which Kong gets hit in the chest. He's like, okay, nope, not dealing with this.
Leaving.
He does. He actually gets up and he just walks away. And Godzilla's on the cliff. Like, I think he was enjoying it because they made it. Xenomorphs have 2 opposable thumbs, don't they? Xenomorphs only have 1 thumb, but they have about 8 fingers.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know nothing about Xenomorph.
Well, the queen has 8 fingers. The Xenomorphs themselves have a thumb, 2 long indexual fingers, and then 1 very long kind of pinky finger.
I'm glad you know that.
I don't know how I know that, but I do.
Fun facts you learn.
Inverse predator when she's running down.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, she has a very large hand.
Predators win because they turn invisible. The end.
And remember in AVP, I know we're getting off track, but since he called me out on that, I got to correct him. Remember, in Alien vs. Predator, the one Predator was about to stab the girl, and the Xenomorph still stabbed through its chest. The cloaking effect has no effect on the Xenomorphs. So, yeah, eat it.
Well, they have dreadlocks, so they have style.
Oh, Jesus.
Jamaica man.
So anyway, they tried to finally realize it's like, they can't stop Godzilla, so they were going to use Kong to fight him. So they helicoptered him to Godzilla, which was on Mount Fuji, after they knocked Kong out.
That's how you do it. You just like carry him around.
Pretty much, which honestly was kind of stupid. Like, as far as like early on movies, Kong Godzilla really was pretty bad. But it's still pretty memorable despite the fact that it's actually so bad.
It's so bad that it's good.
Yeah, in a way. It really got good when they actually did fight. Because in the beginning, Kong still ran from him again. Even after they dropped him on the mountain, he slid down right at Godzilla.
He sees him and he's just like, bye.
Pretty much, he's like, nope, I don't want to fight this thing. So they dropped him, he slid at him, and he pretty much double drop kicked him. Which, obviously, Godzilla did not like.
No.
So he got up, chased Kong, and then they started actually fighting for real. And then, like, Kong was, like, grabbing him by his tail, swinging him by his tail. They're punching and everything. And Godzilla's still proceeding to just wreck.
We have Mothra on the stage now.
It's not Mothra!
It's a small moth.
It's a small moth, but it's not Mothra.
Close enough.
And then they dealt with... they dealt with everything on all that, and then Kong... I know the movie argues it. Kong lost. He lost. Because
controversy.
He got beaten so bad, he got buried in boulders, and Godzilla lit fire right behind his head to burn him alive. But then they decided to make lightning come down, strike Kong in his face, and give him electric powers.
I mean, you know.
And then
lightning punch!
pretty much in a way, but then it's like every time he just like grapples with him, you just see lightning bolts just skirm off Kong's hands and like zap Godzilla.
The world's first ass pull. Hey,
wow.
Deus Ex Machina? God? I can't beat this giant lizard. Please, strike me dead. Oh, you actually did.
And then weirdly enough, it kind of started another kind of a controversy thing and a meme. Godzilla's beating Kong again. He grabs a giant tree and proceeds to shove it down Godzilla's throat, which sparked a lot of memes I've seen. One of them is "Eat your vegetables."
Should do the classic where something tries to bite you and you put a tree in its mouth and then you like shoot it in the throat.
They pretty much tried all that. Then they fought at Osaka Castle. They fell in the water, and then Kong resurfaced. Godzilla did not. But that was the American version. They made 2 versions. One where Godzilla surfaced and Kong didn't, and the other one where Kong surfaced and Godzilla didn't.
So we got the first like Deus Ex Machina ass pull, and the first indecisive. We don't want to piss anyone off in our fan base.
Pretty much.
Dang, they are checking all the boxes. They created all these things. Good job, Godzilla.
And then another one, like I know that there's going to be several pictures, which you can actually bring them up for that. It's not the same one, but it then goes on to Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster.
The man himself.
Pretty much.
Ghidorah's...
And it was where
what was that?
I said that wasn't him.
They had...
The dragon, dang it.
They had...
Which one did you want?
Huh?
Which one did you want?
Go with the grand one because it's the most normal one. Not that guy.
Yips.
But then, yeah, they got just regular Ghidorah, showed up, and that was not him either.
I know. I think I got the one you want on.
He looks beautiful.
That's delayed.
Oh, it's delayed? Okay, yeah, that guy.
Big yellow wings. That's the first one?
No, that's not the Showa version. That's the Heisei version.
Oh, God, we haven't even clarified what the hell those terms mean.
Showa is from 54 up to 80. Heisei is 80 up to 2000.
Are those names based on like the directors or based on...
That's just the time period that they assigned them.
Okay.
And then once it hits 2000, it just becomes the Millennium series. Which...
It's like the version of Godzilla.
Yeah. Which this is from the Heisei series. I didn't think to get a picture of the Showa version, but either way, it's still Ghidorah, so it doesn't much matter. Ghidorah's design doesn't really change all that much from film to film.
At this point, where color and costume works like nonstop for a long time.
Pretty
right?
much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ghidorah first appeared as a meteorite that crashed to Earth. And he was pretty much... Nothing happened when he first crash landed. He was just a rock. And for some reason, this meteorite had magnetic properties. It would absorb anything magnetic around or anything metal to it. And after about a week, it blew up. And the fire literally formed Ghidorah. Just out of nowhere.
That's just what happens.
Yeah, and they already had to deal with Godzilla and Rodan were in this movie just causing havoc because they both awoke from both sides of Japan.
So this is like pure evil Godzilla?
Not pure evil, he's just didn't really give a crap about anything. He wasn't dead set on destroying anything. He just wanted to be left alone.
We haven't really went into the personality of Godzilla in these movies either. Like, so he started really evil, and then he progressively got just like more neutral up to this point.
Yeah, like up until after the one right after Ghidorah the three-headed monster, that's when Godzilla started to become good.
Every time he says that, I keep thinking he's saying hentai.
The
Heisei.
Yeah,
the
Heisei.
The hentai Godzilla, the one with the Biolante and the tentacles. Yeah,
those are vines.
They're tentacles.
They're vines.
Tentacle hentai.
No, shut up.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, Godzilla and Rodan are fighting.
I don't want to see Godzilla
pretty
hentai.
far apart, and Mothra shows up in this again, which was the first time that it was actual massive monster combats. Mothra is still in her in her larva form, so really there's not much she can do at all. Godzilla and Rodan finally meet each other, and they're just going at it, which also is a good thing to know. Rodan is one of the very few monsters who can actually take Godzilla's atomic breath point blank and just shrug it off.
Because Rodan, I thought you said Ghidorah for a second.
No, Ghidorah doesn't even really truly even feel his breath. It's just kind of just there.
It's of note, too. Ghidorah is basically, like, the villain of Godzilla.
He is Godzilla's #1 nemesis. He has several, but Ghidorah is the only one that's ever actually appeared more than twice.
Yeah, so pretty much the main villain of Godzilla.
Yeah, and without question, Ghidorah is... If Godzilla was ever to die and Ghidorah was around, Ghidorah would become the new king. Nothing other than Godzilla can actually stand up to him. And when they do fight, it takes... There's only been one film where Godzilla can actually take down Ghidorah by himself. And that was only because Ghidorah was being controlled and then lost the control.
And isn't Ghidorah usually, like, at least always, like, twice the size of Godzilla?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that Ghidorah is so tomato.
Hentai Heisei tomato.
Whatever, Corey. But, yeah, they did all that. Mothra comes up and actually tries to stop Godzilla and Rodan from fighting. Like, she spits her silk at them to get their attention, for one. And the little fairies are interpreting to people because they're trying to get... That was their goal.
They can talk? Mothra can talk to people?
She can talk to the monsters, just like the monster can talk to each other, but there's those twin fairies that can talk to people, but they can understand Mothra and apparently other monsters.
Mothra's a useful creature.
She really is, despite everybody saying that she's useless.
I wonder if that was that directed at somebody in the chat?
Well, just for one, mostly...
Or just to the populace in general.
Mostly the populace in general, because most people just think that saying Matthew Broderick was overrated as a combatant. What the hell?
I think that went over Andrew's head.
Matthew Broderick was in the 1998 one. I don't even really want to count that one. So, back off from that one. Leave him alone. But yeah, they tried to... That was their goal. They tried to convince Mothra to go and talk to Godzilla and Rodan to team up with all three of them to team up to take on Ghidorah, because nothing could stop Ghidorah alone. So they're doing that. Mothra's having no luck. They're just like, they're actually like insulting Mothra, apparently, from what the fairies per se, or perspective, and apparently Godzilla's got a foul mouth. Which is apparently...
Doesn't surprise me.
No, the fairies are actually saying is like, they actually say, "Oh, Godzilla, what terrible language." Which is like, okay, so Godzilla's got a bad
humans,
mouth.
bro.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what the implementation was. So Mothra's basically just like, all right, fuck you two. I'm going to just go fight Ghidorah by myself. So she does. And she proceeds to pretty much get her ass kicked, which is no surprise because she can't even fly. She's just a caterpillar at this point.
That's sad.
And eventually, Godzilla and Rodan show up. For one, they couldn't just let her go off and do it alone. And two, it would have really hurt their pride as monsters to let some caterpillar go fight one of the greatest monsters ever.
And then it wins.
Well, she actually did help pretty much. But obviously, Godzilla did most of the work, despite the fact that the others were there. Rodan, he's cool to have around, but he doesn't really do very much. Like, he mostly just flaps his wings to create hurricanes.
I'm here for moral support.
Pretty much. Although that one actually was a pretty good one because Mothra actually climbed onto Rodan's back, and Rodan was flying around. Rodan was spitting silk at Mothra was spitting silk at Rodan or at Ghidorah to try to imprison him. Which actually did work because it imprisoned his heads.
Love that twin fairies are the middleman in the Kaiju power struggle.
Yeah, they really were. Like, they were the ones that, one, convinced Mothra to go and actually tried to convince Godzilla and or Rodan to fight him. And then, they can't necessarily communicate straight to Godzilla. They can only communicate with Mothra. But that's just because they're
just like giant living...
they're not
translation devices.
They're not giant. They're fairies. They're only about this big.
Oh,
like they're very tiny. Which, surprised the fact that Mothra can even find them is amazing.
Yeah, I was about to say Mothra's a giant. That's surprising.
Yeah, and it really was an interesting fight because Mothra managed to imprison Ghidorah's 3 heads in her silk, which that's always been Ghidorah's big flaw. He has no arms, so if his heads are imprisoned or if he gets knocked down, he's kind of out of it.
He's a turtle, but worse.
He can get up. It just is difficult for him because all he has is wings. Especially if he's on his back, it's especially difficult. He has to flap and try to get his legs underneath him.
Which probably looks hilarious.
It does. Although, surprisingly, Ghidorah never really falls on his back very much.
Because the plot, that you can't let him fall on his back or the movie's over.
Pretty much. But it was very funny because after his heads were imprisoned in silk, Godzilla went up, grabbed all 3 heads, and then pretty much showed his true strength. Lifted Ghidorah with both hands and proceeded just back and forth sumo slam, just like Hulk did to Loki.
Oh, I just rewatched Ragnarok the other day.
Well, I just meant like Hulk to Loki.
Yeah.
From the first Avengers. Pretty much did that until he basically threw Ghidorah into the ocean. And then he flew off into space like, nope, I'm done.
Gone.
And then this is another spin-off one that never actually did very well at all. It did worse than Reptilicus, but it's still part of Godzilla's universe, and the monsters are still in his franchise.
Are we still Japan?
We're still Japan. It's War of the Gargantuas, which has Sanda and Gyra.
I've heard of Gyra, not Sanda.
They're really weird. Like, we don't really get very much of an origin explanation as to where they came from. Just that they're there. And
so this is kind of like the flop movie. No one really cared too much about it.
Well, there wasn't much to do with it. Like, Sanda was the originator, the brown one. Gyra was actually kind of a clone base. Like,
they look beautiful.
Pretty much, yeah. Gyra is actually aquatic. Sanda is not do well in water at all. But yeah, they're in a way they're brothers, kind of. But Gyra wants to fight. The green one wants to fight and destroy. Sanda is a peaceful one. He does not want to create chaos. So he actually tries to stop Gyra from fighting. He keeps going like, no, let's not fight. Gyra's just like going all calm, like, I want to fight, I want to kill. But so eventually they fight and kill each other. Which...
Obviously Gyra is because Gaia is grass. And
well, which doesn't explain very much.
Sand.
Well, then how's that explained? Because Gyra lives in water.
Well, Gaia is like the earth. Like
it's not Gaia, it's Gyra.
Well, I'm just saying, like, Gaia is kind of like a green color most of the time, and it sounds like Gaia, and then Sanda is brown, and he looks like he's from the desert. I'm just saying.
I see your point.
Thematically.
I see your point. And then there's been a lot of other... Those are the few spin-off Godzilla movies that there were before they actually just go back into his thing. And they introduced just so many different interesting kaijus with it. I know that we've been getting very off topic on this. This was supposed to be like the introduction of a lot of his monsters. I've been going through like synopsis of most of the movies, but I'll try to hurry that along a little bit just to get to some of the monsters.
According to Talk Amongst Yourselves, Mothra has the highest win-loss rate amongst any of Godzilla's opponents.
She actually does. And she's one of the very few who can actually fight Godzilla and win. She's actually beaten him once.
Mothra MVP, Mothra fan club.
She actually beat him with not even being in her moth form. She beat him in larva.
Nice.
Granted, Mothra's egg hatched into twins, and they both imprisoned him in silk, and he fell into the ocean. Not really so much like that they defeated him, but they drove him away. So
it was a win.
It's a win, because very few monsters can actually do that to him.
Incapacitation is the same as a win in a fight.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Which that covers Mothra's intro to fighting Godzilla, which was Godzilla versus the Thing. They just called Mothra the Thing.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Less rocky than I remember.
Yeah. We got that. Then those are those. Then we got one that unfortunately was made.
Mark is grasping at metaphorical and semantic parallels. You see what I do for this podcast? I have to enlighten the masses amongst the deep metaphorical and metaphysical manifestations of my brain. You see all these big words I'm using? I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you obviously don't.
I'm just sounding smart for the camera. I make sense sometimes. But go on, Andrew. Talk about the surface level stuff. I'm just kidding.
Ah, okay.
Andrew knows way more about this than I do. But
there's two movies that they're not necessarily back to back, but they were movies that introduced monsters that were pretty good, and then one that was just downright awful, both in monster and movie. The first one is Son of Godzilla, which unfortunately introduced the Son of Godzilla. Because, I mean, obviously that sounds like a good idea, but Mila, which is what he's called, is the derp of the Godzilla universe. Pretty much. He's useless. He can't do anything. He can change his size, which is, I guess, good.
Hey, well, it is good.
Yeah, but it's like, even when he changes his size, he's not very big. He can go from being the size of a human, to actually not even a human child, to being only about to Godzilla's waist.
Well, if he's like any smart person who can turn small and giant, all he's got to do, let Godzilla eat him, don't get chewed up, go down the throat, expand dead.
Why would Godzilla eat his own son?
You know, for reasons.
Well, Godzilla's not immortal.
I should say other kaiju that aren't Godzilla. If he wants to defeat anyone, he just has to shrink down, get eaten, and then expand in their stomach, and then they explode.
I don't think that would work, because for one, they wouldn't do that. They know that it would be the son of Godzilla, and they would do whatever they could to kill him, not eat him, just as a show of power. To be like, to go to the kings, like, hey,
I killed your son.
I killed your son.
That's suicide.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, that one introduced two monsters that were interesting, but in a fight against Godzilla are pretty much useless. There are two more insects. There's Kamanga and Kamacuras. I don't have pictures of those. Kamanga is just a giant spider. Nothing more to be said about him. He's just a giant spider. No abilities. All he can do is spit silk, and well, that's about all he can do. I thought at first, like, he does have venom, which don't really know. Fucking Mila. Pretty much.
Manila.
Manila, it's pronounced different ways. Oh. When they first introduced it, it was pronounced Mila. But then the other one is Kamacuras. Giant... No, not a scorpion. I wish it would be a scorpion. What's that supposed to be?
Scythes.
Praying mantis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ha! I knew it.
Yep. Kamacuras are praying mantis. Which, ironically enough, those actually can be a little bit more of a threat to Godzilla because they actually attack in groups. Oh. Which, they're the reason...
tiny as hell, though, right?
No, they're not as big as him, but they're very, very large.
I thought they were like to his level. What was that?
Yeah, we'll get to that guy in a second. But yeah, he ends up... There was like a group of 6 Kamacuras when they first showed up. Godzilla killed all but 1.
You tell the other Kamacuras not to come back here, or else this is gonna happen to everybody.
Well, he killed all but 1, and then when he was fighting Kamanga, the final Kamakura showed up, and he ended up hitting it with his breath, knocking it down, and the Kamanga killed the final Kamacuras.
That's confusing.
And yet, both Kamacuras and Kamacuras both died, but they're still good enough that apparently they've been able to reappear. Which, I can see Kamacuras, because he actually is useful. He can fly like a praying mantis, but they can fly pretty quick. But Kamanga really has no appeal. He's just a giant spider that can spray silk. And then going on to the other one that's just downright awful is what the picture was just up of, Gabara. One of the worst Godzilla movies ever made.
He's not on the screen anymore. Makes me sad.
He will be.
I wanted to see his dirt face.
He will be back up, but he is just terrible because he was only made up for the movie.
Yeah, dude. That pose, though.
He's dumb. His roar is even stupid. It sounds like a raspy chuckle.
But he obviously exercises.
No, those are just scale plates. He's not all that fit.
Yeah, but look at him. He's posing like a physically fit man.
It's a threat. He's trying to threaten Godzilla because
alternatively he's like pelvic thrusting, like like I don't know.
Well, he was trying to rant for power because he was constantly picking fights with Godzilla's son. Kind of in a way, he was kind of the Monster Island bully.
Well, he's a failure because I'm loving this.
For sign language of monsters coming from Mr. Planet. Yep. But what made the movie actually so bad is it's not even actually happening. It's all in the mind of a kid. This kid.
So it was fake. It was a lie.
Pretty much. That's what.
Liezilla.
This kid is just. He likes Godzilla so much that whenever he's like alone or thinking about shit or doing or whatever, his mind just kind of like transfers him to Monster Island, and he metaphorically makes friends with Godzilla's son, who apparently can talk.
This is the first In Another World anime.
It's not Another World anime. But does that. He runs into several monsters, and it actually shows from several other Godzilla films of Godzilla just running through Monster Island, just destroying whatever monster he comes across. And then the big bad of that movie was this asshole.
He is quite assholey.
Well, he picks on Mila a lot, and really his only power is what I was just saying with Kong.
The power of dance.
No, he can transmit electricity through his hands. That's his only power. And
but through an actual lightning bolt, or he can just do that?
He could just do that.
That's at least less of an asshole than Kong.
Well, the fact that he wasn't actually trying to kill. He just wanted to fight, and he was calling out Godzilla, which did not work very well.
By the way, what era of Godzilla are we in right now, and what year are we at?
We're still in the Showa. And when was this god awful thing?
If you can't remember him, at least just say the next movies.
Well, we skipped a few of them, but because I didn't have pictures of them, but there are a lot of good ones, like Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which is the smog monster, which we actually covered him before. Mm-hmm. And then we got him. Then there's Godzilla vs. Gigan, which was Ghidorah's... Actually, that was Ghidorah's third appearance. First, it was Ghidorah, three-headed monster, Monster Zero, and then Godzilla vs. Gigan, which was Gigan and Ghidorah teaming up against Godzilla and Anguirus.
I just realized that I have Nintendo's Kaiju on my shirt.
Ha!
Bowser is the ultimate Kaiju. Everyone should realize this. Okay, sorry. I just looked down and I was like, Bowser.
Yeah, that, and then we got Godzilla vs. Megalon, which is one you were talking about with the drop kick.
Mm-hmm. The Carzilla.
Yep. And then
Let me get on my tail here. Urgh.
And then we get to, which I did some research on too, we got to the very first ever mech monster.
Oh. Mecha Ghidorah?
No, he shows up in Hesai.
So Mecha Godzilla?
Yep. Oh. Mecha Godzilla was the first mecha kaiju.
And he was just made by humans?
No. The first Mecha Godzilla was made by aliens. And they were so confident that Mecha Godzilla was the ultimate monster that they foolhardily sent him out to destroy the world, and unfortunately ran into Godzilla.
Yeah.
The first time round, it was him against... originally, it was him against King Caesar, which is another monster that's only ever had one appearance, and yet somehow is still really really memorable.
And he hasn't came back at all?
He came back in Final Wars back in 2004.
That had, like, every monster, though, right?
Every monster that Godzilla never killed. So, about 15. 3 of them were his allies, but, well, whatever.
Oh.
And then we got to that, and then we get to the Heisei, which was Godzilla 1984 or 1985, which is the first true evil Godzilla.
Okay. 85, you said.
85.
Wow, we are approaching the current days.
That one is actually interesting because it might be the first in the Heisei series, but it's also one of the first Godzilla movies that actually takes place almost priority in America.
And we still guy in a suit.
Still, Godzilla is always guy in a suit.
Always.
Except
modern Godzilla.
Except for Shin, Legendaries, and unfortunately 98.
Dun, 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 dun. Progressively better guy in suit, though.
Yeah, they get better, very much better on as they go along. But 1985 was back to the first time where Godzilla fought nothing.
He was just killing humans.
Just
military.
Yeah, and they actually brought up a very good, interesting point about him is that since Godzilla is a type of dinosaur, and since dinosaurs are related to birds, bird calls stimulate his brain, and if he hears a flock of birds, he'll follow them.
Huh.
Which is why which people didn't understand what happened when he was hacking a nuclear factory. He was eating the radiation and then just suddenly left, for no reason. They were thinking well, he's just full.
No, but I heard a bird.
It actually is what it was. He heard a flock of birds and he followed them. So they used that and they drew him to a volcano. I can't remember which one it was. Set off depth charges and basically threw Godzilla into a volcano.
Oh, damn.
Which, it still couldn't kill him, but it was just an imprisonment.
When you get to King Caesar.
We already kind of passed him. He's essentially just a lion. But he does have an interesting power, though. He can, if it's a beam weapon, specifically Mechagodzilla, he fires it, it goes into one eye and comes out the other at almost double power.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which is
redirection powers.
Pretty much, and he's a very good close combat fighter.
I dub him Meliodas. Reflects things, double the power. He's a good close-up fighter. He's the lion's sin of that's not Meliodas.
Nope. If you actually want to try to go with that, it's granted the way it was done when he first appeared, it was kind of cheesy, but in Final Wars, you actually would probably compare him more likely to Rock Lee.
Really?
Yeah, he's very good at ninjutsu type moves, surprisingly, despite that he's
a ninja lion.
Pretty much. And then we get to Godzilla. Then we got after 95 or 85, we got to Biollante, which is his clone. And then we got a few more until we can go into these guys. We got Biollante, then we got Godzilla and King Ghidorah face off again.
So this is their second fight?
Well, the first...
Second big one. He has crazy nipples. I know that.
Chest plates, but pretty much.
Basically nipples.
Yeah. No, as far as the Heisei series, it was their first fight. But overall, it was about his 4th or 5th time fighting Godzilla overall through the entire franchise. Okay. But that one was a good fight. That was the one where he was being controlled. And Godzilla did come back bigger than he was before because humanity tried to get rid of him. They went back in time to when he was still just a dinosaur before the atomic bomb hit. And they erased him from history. But he still found a way to come back bigger than he was before, more powerful, and had absolutely no life for humanity anymore.
Oh, by the way, just random question. You don't have to go into heavy detail on this because it would take forever.
Probably.
But, so, what's the history, a quick history of, human involvement in these movies? Did it start out, barely any humans at all? Or would it start out, even heavier with the humans than nowadays? Because, nowadays the movies are, 60% humans, 40% kaijus, or whatever, or...
They're always in there. They've gotten a lot more affiliation as the movies went on, but they're kind of just there kind of to be an annoyance. It's like, because...
Well, like with Shin and stuff, it was like human focus.
Right.
So,
yeah, kind of... Actually, Shin is kind of a throwback to the original Godzilla. It was mostly...
And Evangelion.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, they got that. We got that. And then after Godzilla and Ghidorah, which also introduced Mecha King Ghidorah.
Okay, so the first Mecha Ghidorah, pretty much.
The only one. Mecha King Ghidorah ever only had one appearance.
What? He didn't come back in Final Wars?
Nope.
What?
Well, because that was... King Ghidorah pretty much had already gotten killed off in the way.
And was Mecha Ghidorah actually Ghidorah just with mechanical parts?
Yep.
Okay, modified by who?
The aliens that actually control... Or not aliens.
Made the original Mecha Godzilla?
No, this entirely different thing. Like, in this one, Ghidorah was created by people from the future. They came back in time because Japan was apparently going to be destroyed by Godzilla, obviously. Well,
yeah.
he's for a later on thing. But they brought him back, and they had these 3 little creatures called Dorits. And when they got rid of Godzilla from history, they put those 3 back there so that when the atomic bomb hit, they would fuse and create King Ghidorah, so they could control him. And then after they lost control, one Godzilla pretty much proceeded to just wreck King Ghidorah. He blew holes in his wings, destroyed the wings, and blew off his center head. So,
Damn.
yeah.
So, mechanical center head go.
Pretty much. That also kind of proves that Godzilla don't take no shit.
Ghidorah got 3 brains?
Yeah, he has 3 brains, but it's very unclear as to actually which one controls the body. If I had to actually say, I would say probably the center head, but after he... Probably was the center head, because when he lost the center head, Ghidorah proceeded to try to run away. I think the center head controls most of the body, and when it's gone, the other 2 can dominate.
Did you know that part of octopi's neurological structure is found in their tentacles?
Yeah.
So when you cut off their head, they can still think with their arms? Mm-hmm. That's fucked. That's Reiner. Reiner's just like, he's an octopus. But anyway, go on.
Okay, we had... and then after
Or
that
Ghidorah
one,
might be an octopus. He thinks with his feet.
I think it's with his heads.
With his arms. Oh, wait.
He doesn't have arms.
I said, oh, wait.
After that, we had Godzilla Battle for Earth, which was him and Mothra again, which also featured another evil, dark Mothra, Batra. Which I know that...
normal, good Mothra fight Batra?
Yep.
Did Mothra win?
Actually, Mothra was on the losing end of that fight. Batra is actually more powerful.
I'm assuming Batra's a bat.
Nope. Still pretty much looks just like Mothra, just tweaked in design.
That is inaccurate.
The name doesn't fit, but Batra overall is way better way better looking. He was going to... Then after he pretty much beat Mothra, he was like, alright, I'm going to go fight Godzilla. And got wrecked. And only after,
as you do.
Only after Mothra decided to go in and save Batra from being killed, they worked together to take down Godzilla.
Was that Batra's only appearance?
Batra's only appearance because Godzilla, to get rid of him, they were going to Batra and Mothra were going to take him out to sea. And to do that, they had to pick him up. And Batra took the very wrong place to be. He grabbed the head.
Oh. Yes.
So... And it started, as soon as he landed, Godzilla went right for the throat.
Of course.
But he still hung on just long enough to carry him away. Batra had the head, Mothra had the tail.
Oh, by the way, since we're really further than we had been, we haven't talked about it yet. Or since we haven't talked about it for a while. How is Godzilla's like blasts looking at this point?
Still, they're looking so much better, but they're still blue.
And like just CG or...
Yeah, they've always been CG, but the way when the suits got better, it got way better looking. So instead of before it looked like it would just come out like the tip of his mouth, now we're at the point where it actually comes out fully from his mouth.
And wasn't there a movie too where like Godzilla looked down and shot and like lifted himself with his own laser beam?
That's in Godzilla vs. Hedorah.
Oh my god.
There's
like some meme potential in some of the Godzilla fight scenes, I swear.
They always do that. They always make the darker Godzilla movies, they throw in stupid comedic things. Like with Megalon with him and his drop kicks, and then Hedorah with him flying with his fire.
Yeah.
It's just dumb.
Just campy and fun.
Yeah. After that, we got Godzilla and Space Godzilla, which was interesting because that Space Godzilla only existed because of the end of the Godzilla and Mothra fighting again, when Mothra went into space with Godzilla's DNA attached to her legs from all the fighting and from Biollante. And they got through black holes, came back through a white hole, and all that, and constant meteorific...
Meteorific?
Whatever. But collisions, and eventually it formed Space Godzilla, who actually has been confirmed as the heaviest kaiju ever.
He looks pretty fat from what I've seen.
Well, that's just his normal form. He has a travel form, which he's literally in a giant crystal. He weighs close to, I think it said, 780 million tons.
And based on my wiki I go to with all the calculations of character stats, when he's in his crystal form, he's like light speed.
Pretty much.
He travels between planets like snap.
Not quite that fast, but he's pretty damn fast. He's one of the fastest flying kaijus when he's in that form.
Yeah, but he can't do anything else, just fly.
Well, he can still breathe fire and everything, but he can't do very much else because his legs and his tail are imprisoned, or not imprisoned, but they're encoded in it, and then his arms are all kind of tiny. Space Godzilla kind of has T-Rex arms, which is a real kind of downflaw design, but overall, it's still very cool looking design.
Yeah.
Then we got Destroya, which probably people would say is one of the best Godzilla films, just because I don't have a picture of him either.
I was like, I've been looking for pictures for a while. I can't find it.
He's got like pincers and red eye and like the horn and the weird thing on his chest where he shoots laser. Supposed to shoot lasers from, but he didn't.
Yeah, that was scrapped from the film, unfortunately.
But the whole design accentuates his chest to make it look like it's gonna shoot laser beams, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, but it also was implicated to be a weakness.
Oh,
because it's like kind of like a heart condition thing. It's like if he hits it, maybe one shot he can take, but then after that, it starts getting to where it actually hurts and makes him spew blood. But then, with that, that's pretty much the end of the Heisei series.
Now we're getting into modern day Godzilla, like 2000 era.
Well, yeah, but there's one monster that was... Well, there's a spin-off thing that I'll get into after a second, but there's another one that was a monster that nobody probably has heard of because he's never actually been in a movie. He was supposed to be... But he got drafted and then got cut out of 3 different films. It's Bagon, which I do have a picture of him. Bagon, yes. He was supposed to appear back in the Showa series like 3 times, and then he was supposed to appear at one movie in the Heisei, which he was supposed to replace Destroya.
He looks like a football player with them arms.
Well, actually, those are
tackled of death.
Well, he's actually supposed to be based on like a Chinese or Japanese legend that's supposed to have him be 3 separate creatures that could form together to form Bagon. And there's just so many different designs that Bagon had, so there's very little actually known about him. But he was supposed to be one of the most powerful monsters that Godzilla ever would have faced.
I wonder why he got scrapped.
The way they wanted to do with it, they wanted to actually have the 3 monsters that could make him be separate and then fuse, and then they can separate, but then it takes them a long time to get back up to full power fighting. Toho just never decided to run with him.
Oh, really quick question. Is Gamera in existence yet?
Gamera, he is in existence, but they're not in the same timeline franchise.
I know, we were talking about different kaiju movies outside of Godzilla, so I was just curious when Gamera dropped.
We might get into him in a sec, but maybe not this time because it's kind of pushing it. But then another thing in there is the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy, which Mothra once again got solo films. And the first monster that she faced in that movie was Des Ghidorah, which is it's another version of King Ghidorah. But Des Ghidorah's origin is very unclear, but what he did beforehand is not so unclear. He is responsible for turning Mars into a barren wasteland.
Oh, wow.
He will absorb the energy and life force of a planet until it's destroyed and then just moves on.
So we finally know why Mars used to look like Earth.
Yes, okay. And other than a monster in Godzilla Final Wars named Kaiser Ghidorah, I don't have a picture of him, but he is the only other quadrupedal Ghidorah.
Oh, okay. And
when he first shows up, he is massive.
Doesn't look like he has wings either.
when he first shows up, he doesn't have wings because he was imprisoned for millennia, finally gets freed, and he has to absorb enough energy before he can sprout his wings.
Oh, okay.
So up until he does, he just has like Windrunner fins down his back. And kind of has the same Ghidorah style, but he has one tail that branches off. But then he gets his wings, and Mothra seals him up again. And then moving on to... Well, that's actually the third one. The second movie in Mothra's trilogy is Rebirth of Mothra 2. The names are just Rebirth of Mothra 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. And the second one, he faces a creature called Degarla.
I never heard of that one.
He's only ever appeared in that movie. That the Mothra trilogy, every monster that she fights, she kills, which gives credit to Mothra because she is the only one in there. But she's confirmed that she has 3 kills of 3 very powerful creatures. And yeah, Degarla he's kind of weird because he's an amphibious creature, but he can also fly,
like flying fish.
Except
they kind of glide. He can legit. Fly.
He can legit fly. And he's really weird. He has, like, they look like spear tips on his shoulders. They can actually fire a beam, which is really, really weird. But what are you going to do about that? But yeah, Mothra ends up killing him. And then Rebirth of Mothra 3, they go back in, because they deal with what was just up there with that first...
Ghidorah.
With that other Ghidorah, which was... And that one is Grand King Ghidorah.
Oh. And
at that point, he is just unstoppable. Ghidorah cannot be stopped no matter what Mothra does.
And Mothra dies in that film.
Nope, she actually doesn't.
What?
Yeah,
she always dies.
In the Rebirth of Mothra thing, Mothra's mom does die, but then it features the offspring of that Mothra, and she can transform into different variations. Like, her one in that one is Leo Mothra. And then she goes into, when she fought Degarla, she goes into Aqua Mothra. And then when she fights Ghidorah in that one, she goes into Armored. Dang. So she can transform. The only way that they could figure out how to deal with stopping that is somehow Mothra's able to time travel and goes back to what this one is, Cretaceous King Ghidorah. Which, that one says that Ghidorah was responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs.
And Ghidorah's just an asshole.
Ghidorah always is. But...
ruining everything.
In that form, Ghidorah is actually way smaller than he always is. It's like, he's still giant, but it shows him actually lifting up and eating a T-Rex. And the T-Rex it still fits in his mouth.
But barely.
But yeah, not enough that it would be like normal Ghidorah. And so Mothra goes back and kills off Ghidorah back then, comes back to the present. Ghidorah's still around, but much weaker. So it's easy for her to finish him off. And then that's how the Rebirth of Mothra goes. So in a way, she killed 2 versions of King Ghidorah.
That's impressive as hell.
Yeah. So for all the people that say Mothra is still useless, she killed one of the most powerful monsters in the entire franchise. And then then we're in the Millennium series, and the first one of that is Godzilla 2000. What?
I thought you were saying 1999.
No, I'm skipping him. I don't classify him as Godzilla. Yeah, if he's in it at all, he's Zilla. But then we have him in 2000. He fights a monster called Orga, which is just the origin of Orga is very, very, very unclear. Just an alien that crash lands. No particular reason as to why he came to Earth.
But I think I saw that movie too, right? I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
I don't know. It's the one where Godzilla's green.
Okay.
But yeah, and this one is one of the early on times that Godzilla's beam was permanently different. Like, it was orange instead of his normal blue.
Strange.
They want to go with a different look for Godzilla, which apparently not a lot of people like the 2000 version, but I really like him.
Also, quick side note, there was a Zilla cartoon that wasn't as bad as the actual movie.
No, that one actually is good.
Yeah.
That one I will actually call Godzilla.
So is that the first animated Godzilla, period?
Nope.
Oh.
That was the Hanna-Barbera one.
Okay.
Which I did have a picture of it, but I didn't send it. I should have done that, of Godzilla's cousin, Godzuki.
Godzuki.
Yeah, which is essentially kind of like Godzilla, but he has membranes between his arms. And he's just basically picture like Scooby-Doo. Okay. He's Scoob.
Okay.
Kind of a dimwit.
You derpy.
Pretty much. And then we got that, and then we got Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, which he fights a giant mosquito, dragonfly, scorpion mix.
That sounds badass. She
is one of the most impressive insects I've ever seen. And again, only one appearance.
Did she die?
Well, after she put on a very good fight, because she can fly at supersonic, and Godzilla had a very hard time dealing with that. But yeah, she absorbs his own energy to use as a weapon against him. But I really wish she would have shown up again, because she was a very impressive monster.
Maybe one day in the future they can resurrect her.
I hope they do, because she was a very, very impressive looking creature.
Mm-hmm.
She had the most demonic face of any creature that they've ever had.
Oh, we don't have a picture on here.
No, I didn't think of doing that, because I figured most people would know who Megaguirus is.
Fair.
And then after that, we have... That was 2000. So we get 2001, which is Godzilla Giant Monsters All Out Attack, which is the only incarnation where Ghidorah has been good. Godzilla was pure evil, and it's Mothra and Baragon teaming up with Ghidorah to fight him, which does not end well for any of them.
I would say not.
Yeah, that one is actually the first true movie where Godzilla actually had no issues killing Ghidorah, which is kind of sad.
Because they made Godzilla the bad guy, so he had to be more powerful.
Well, Ghidorah actually was very powerful. It's just he didn't get his full power until the end. It's like he didn't awaken his full power until he was already weakened, and Godzilla was proving that he was already more powerful. After that, we hit Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which is the third incarnation of him. I know we skipped the second one, but it's not the greatest look for him, which introduces the one that a lot of people will complain about for Ready Player One. It's supposed to be Kiryu. And that one is really impressive. Godzilla looks really amazing. Mechagodzilla just looks sick as hell. And there's Tokyo SOS, which is Mothra's yet another appearance.
Mothra's super popular, man.
She really is, despite the fact that she's just an insect. But
maybe Japan likes Mothra more than the U.S.
I think they probably do, because she's one of the all-time monsters. Like, in the list, she's up there almost as high as Godzilla. But she shows up because Mechagodzilla is in such damage that he can't really fight. So Mothra agrees to go fight for him as long as they return Mechagodzilla to the ocean. Because in this film genre thing, Mechagodzilla is made from the bones of the original 54 Godzilla.
Okay.
Which, when they first meet Godzilla and Mechagodzilla in the first movie, Godzilla roars, Mechagodzilla hears it, and snaps and goes back to acting just like the original Godzilla. But they fix it and all that, so they're saying the Twin Fairies come back, and they're like, if you return Mechagodzilla to the sea where he belongs, Mothra will fight Godzilla in your place. They'll say that they will, but only after they kill Godzilla, because they really need him dead.
Mm-hmm.
So Mothra does show up, and she actually gives it... That's the longest time she's ever lasted in a fight. And she does some pretty impressive things. She actually... Which is another standard thing. Like I said before, her and Batra lifted Godzilla and carried him out to sea. This is the one where she actually picks him up and carries him by herself. She grabs him by the head and just lifts him, drags him, and drops him into a building. Which he gets payback. He bites off one of her legs and throws her into a building.
They need to get along better.
And Godzilla's evil.
Supposed to be friends.
When Godzilla's evil, they don't get along. When Godzilla's a good guy, they are on the same side. Then Mechagodzilla shows up, finally fixed up, has a drill hand, stabs into Godzilla's gut, and pretty much kills him. And then he snaps back to his original Godzilla mode, picks up Godzilla, who got covered in silk because of Mothra's larva. Mothra got killed, and the larva proceeded to want revenge. So they cover him in silk. Mechagodzilla picks him up, takes him out to sea, ties them both together, and they both fall into the Pacific Ocean, or whatever ocean is around them. Yeah, they both return to the sea. And then we hit Final War, which has so many other kaiju, and it's the first time that Zilla made an appearance again.
In an actual Japanese Godzilla.
In an actual Japanese, which was funny, because Toho bought the rights to that 98 Godzilla.
Just to kill him.
Just to kill him. Rebrand him, shorten his name, take away any dignity he had, which he never had any to begin with, and butcher him. Which... Honestly, it was very, very enjoyable.
I'm glad.
And he fought King Caesar again, which he had Godzilla. The aliens controlled all these monsters, except Godzilla because he was frozen in Antarctica for like 60 years. So they went back again to freezing him. He got loose and the ship controlled by the good people basically flew and had Godzilla follow them all around the world to fight the monsters that were being placed in strategic locations to take over the world. First,
solid plan.
It worked. And Godzilla but it's like by the time he got to the end, it's like no wonder Godzilla seemed like he was losing because he walked all over the world and fought so many different monsters.
I said screw it at the second one. I don't want to walk over the whole world just to fight.
Well, he wanted that ship so bad because it was causing him a lot of problems. And plus, after he was frozen, when he woke up, he thought that the same battle was still going on. So he was in that same mentality. And then he fought Rodan, Anguirus, and King Caesar at Mount Fuji. But since they're his friends, they're the only monsters in the entire movie that he did not use his breath on.
He just took them and tried to knock them out.
Which he did. And first up that get knocked out, because, I mean, honestly, think about it. It's 3-on-1.
But it's Godzilla.
Yeah, but the ones that you're fighting were pretty formidable in terms of maneuverability and combat. The very first time that it ever showed Anguirus being able to roll up into a ball, he's the armadillo with the spikes. First time it showed him being able to roll into a ball.
Sandshoe style.
Pretty much. And use it as kind of like a meteor ball that he could roll around in and like impale Godzilla's chest and then fly around. Yeah, after he hit him in the chest, flew up, Rodan kind of backheaded him with his head and knocked him forward. Godzilla's like, all right, nope, had enough of this. He looked up, Anguirus was just coming back down to hit him again. His tail smacked Anguirus, head on into Rodan. Rodan fell into a mountain. He's done. King Caesar shows up and full on like dodgeball shit, just like roundhouse kicks Anguirus. Godzilla leaps to like throw him, but Anguirus turned at the last seconds. He's like, nope, I ain't dealing with this.
Done.
He crashes into the mountain, so that's 2 down.
Jeez.
And then King Caesar's like, all right, I'm going to high knee this bitch. Does not work. He jumps out of the way and flings him, and he hits into the mountain. And when it finally shows, all 3 monsters are laying on top of each other.
Wow.
And he's just like, all right, we done? None of them are getting
I'm
up.
done here.
They're just like, okay, we're done. Fights all them. Fights Kaiser Ghidorah, which I don't have a picture of him either. I probably should have gotten one of him. But that's the only Ghidorah that ever actually pretty much killed Godzilla. Was able to suck life force out of him. And pretty much did that if the people wouldn't have shot Kaiser energy into him, would not have been able to survive. Godzilla would have been dead. And then another thing is just another monster that very few people actually probably would have heard of because he only ever had one appearance and really needed his own. He needed to be in there more. It's an old black and white one, but I wanted to get through everything just to show the fact that he's never actually showed up again. Varen.
Never heard of him.
Case in point.
Yeah.
Because he's a very, very unique creature. He's essentially a flying lizard, but the way that they made him look, they just made him look really, really interesting. Like, there's a picture of him, too.
Yeah.
Normally, he just walks around like a normal monster, but he has membranes in between his arms and legs that allow him to glide. And he only ever had the one movie, which is Varen the Unbelievable, to where people that would actually see him would die of fright from actually just looking at him. But for some reason, he just never made another appearance.
Dicks.
He showed up a couple times in other films, but never... He was always a background monster, never anything that had any relevance. And another guy that was another one that should have had more screen time is Manda.
Yeah, I know about Manda.
Yeah, he's just a Chinese dragon, pretty much. And his first movie wasn't even in a Godzilla film. It was in a movie called Atragon, where Manda is the guardian of an ancient civilization.
So it's another Toho movie?
I think it was a Toho movie. I actually haven't seen Atragon yet. Because I only found out about it recently, or not recently, but a while ago, and just been trying to find it.
I figure it'd be Toho, considering you eventually went to the Godzillaverse.
Oh, I'm sure it is a Toho. I just don't know anything of what it's about. But yeah, he's kind of generic, but he's still a pretty impressive looking kaiju. And then we got a couple that are from the Godzilla Unleashed game for Wii, which I would love for them to show up in a movie, they are I guess you'd call them the Rock Twins. The one...
I think I played that game, actually.
The first one is Obsidious. He is...
Black.
Well, in a way, but just like his name suggests, he's pretty much made of that volcanic rock obsidian. But other than the game, we don't know all that much about him. But yeah, as from the picture shows, he's a very interesting looking kaiju. He almost looks like the rock titan from Hercules.
Yeah, I can see that.
But his head is kind of a flat-jawed head. He has like almost nothing in his mouth except just like a build mouth. I don't even think he has eyes. And then...
They're hidden.
Well, no, I just don't think he actually has eyes, period. Because he's literally just a living rock. Or a living volcano, basically.
He just has extra senses.
And then his, I guess, brother is Crystalak. Which I would love to see him in a movie, because playing him in the game, he is a beast.
I'm assuming the game had its own like story mode, and that's why they were introduced.
No, they weren't. They didn't have a story mode. They were just... They were just extra
original
monsters.
Creatures.
Yeah, original creatures. But Crystalak is a very, very uniquely looking designed creature. I would love to see him show up in a movie because he has several abilities that no other kaiju has ever had. Like, he can shoot crystal shards from his tail. He can charge at you with the crystals on his back and can do some serious damage. But his most amazing ability, aside from the fact that he can shoot like a compressed beam of crystal, is he can actually explode his own heart. Like, it's almost like a bomb. Like, he can explode his crystal heart.
Suicide.
It doesn't kill him.
What?
Yeah, he can explode his heart, and he can just keep right on fighting.
What?
Yeah.
That's Bosch.
It is, but it's like a special ability in the game. I don't know how it would play out if he ever came into the movies, but in the game, I love fighting as Crystalak. He is one of the most maneuverable creatures there is.
Yeah, I mean, in games, like, the physics never make as much sense as they do in the movies, because...
Well, that's the other thing. In the game, every other kaiju, their abilities are exactly the same.
Well, since he's a brand new kaiju, they had to just make him up for the game, but still.
Which I don't actually understand why they made them up and never decided to put him in anything, but I don't know. And just one other thing that I didn't have a picture of, but just thought would be interesting to note, is Godzilla has his own comic line, too. And one in particular that I just got a while ago is Godzilla Rage Across Time, which I wanted this specific volume just to prove to some people of how powerful he actually is. Godzilla took on Mount Olympus.
Oh, damn.
And won. First he took on Poseidon and wrecked Poseidon like it was nothing. He came ashore, was fighting everything. Zeus released the Hydra. Did not last long. Godzilla actually used the Hydra to collapse Mount Olympus. And then he went one-on-one with Zeus.
Awesome.
And wrecked Zeus. Zeus actually retreated.
I'll have to read this at some point. It sounds pretty great.
It is amazing. And it also implies that Zeus got wrecked, but he did like drive away Godzilla after he did have to retreat too. But it showed also that Zeus... Because obviously Mount Olympus was destroyed, so he had nowhere to go. So he decided to live amongst humans. And it ends with... which one is it? The Pompeii incident was Godzilla.
I like how all the kaiju movies just like try to explain like normal, like mysterious events, being like, it was the kaijus.
Yep. But I just thought that was an interesting thing because it even shows Zeus getting petrified from that Pompeii eruption, and all you hear in the end there is Godzilla roaring as the comic ends. So just a little side note on that of just showing that Godzilla can take on gods and win.
At least according to that comic writer. Different writers, you know.
Yeah,
You never know.
So there's two of them that I didn't show. It's this one. Oh yeah, I did show that one. This one right here.
What did you have still?
Gorgo, I guess.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I forgot about Gorgo.
Gorgo.
Which I think maybe the reason I may have forgot to bring him up is because I actually still haven't seen Gorgo.
Oh.
But I really want to. It's a kind of an older school Godzilla-like movie.
But it's not actually.
No, it's not.
It's not actually Toho, or
no, it's an American movie.
Huh.
But I've been meaning to try to get that movie.
Do it.
And then what did you say? What was the other one I forgot?
I already seen it. It was Drangula.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. Well, so out of all the pictures of things I did, I only missed one. So.
So are you
I
gonna?
was thinking I missed a lot for a minute.
So are you talking about any of the really modern ones, or gonna? What do you think?
Well, the really modern ones, I think people probably would understand and probably have seen already, because Legendaries is really pretty popular. And then Shin, most people probably don't know a lot about Shin, but it's there.
But hey, the theater was packed, so some people
Yeah,
must.
the Shin was there, and then the only other one that's out right now is the Godzilla anime, which is a Toho one, and
Apparently the second one might be kind of disappointing, but
well, just in the fact that it advertised Mechagodzilla, but he never actually shows up.
hopefully.
But from everything else, they say that it's still a good movie of watching them try to take on the largest Godzilla in existence, which he actually rules the entire Earth. He has become the Earth.
The future Earth.
Pretty much.
So hopefully the third anime movie can make up for the second one being a little lackluster.
Hopefully, because it actually has been already confirmed. The third movie will feature King Ghidorah. Which I know it's like, King Ghidorah is featured in everything, but when you got the #1 monster to fight, it doesn't make much of a difference, especially as long as they can do him well.
Especially, yeah, seeing anime King Ghidorah might be pretty awesome.
Oh, they have a little teaser snippet of him, just of his heads and his wings.
And you're already down.
Oh my god, I love it. He looks amazing. His wings are almost like twice the size of his entire body, which is pretty impressive.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, and then we have next year, 2019, we have Godzilla 2, which is the sequel to the legendary one, which will be kind of a modernized remake of Godzilla, or Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, where he fights Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla. So I don't know how they're going to go with that. Everybody's getting kind of shitty on all that already, even though they haven't even seen a trailer for it yet.
Leave it to the internet to judge things before they come out.
I know, which
I'm not innocent.
I have absolutely no worries that they will make that look good. After what they gave us with Godzilla for Legendary, I have no issues or even any doubts that they will make Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidorah look great. It's just how they make Ghidorah move around is the only thing that's...
Add CG, he'll look fine.
No, I'm not meaning that. Like, I would like to see like if they make him look like they did with Smaug from The Hobbit. Like, walk around like that.
Great. Yeah, I love
like,
that.
Because that's always been Ghidorah's downfall. He has no arms.
Yeah, he's
so
kind
if
of
they,
fat and his legs are...
That's all he has. He's legs, wings, and heads.
They can just treat him like a more realistic kind of creature. Like, give him longer hind legs and make him, like, kind of crouch down with his wings behind him. Like,
what I would actually like is for him to be like Smaug, like where his wings and hands are one and the same, and he walks on them.
And basically make him less like Dragonite and more like... What's a good dragon Pokemon example? What's the one with the red head? Like the literally red head and the rest of his body's blue.
Drapion?
Yeah. Give him a body type more like that than Dragonite. Because literally, he looks like Dragonite from the body type, except minus the arms.
He's not that fat.
Well, I'm just saying he's just like a body that just goes into legs. Like, he doesn't actually have a curvature of a dragon like he should. Unlike Drapion or whatever does.
Yeah. Or Druddigan, not...
We should really be using the three-headed dragon, Hydreigon, considering...
Yeah, but...
But he's kind of like got the fat kind of...
He just doesn't have... He's just a little bit different. But yeah, I would personally like to see Ghidorah walk around like that and still be able to like be bigger than Godzilla on all fours, and then still have him rear up with the big wing stance and everything, and still be able to
make him a bat, essentially.
Well, not really a bat, but just have like not so much that he needs to walk on all fours, but just that he can for extra support and with his arms there, because it's like King Ghidorah, he's already impressive as hell, but without wings or without arms to protect himself, he's essentially just a giant target once you get in close, because his head's... You get past his heads, there's nothing he can do.
And he's too thick for CG. Look at that.
Well, there's been... like, with Godzilla and when he fought Gigan, like, I know backtracking way back to the Showa, perfect example of that. Gigan already, they drove him away, and Godzilla basically went up, bent Ghidorah's heads all the way back behind his back, and Godzilla's just holding him back there. Ghidorah wasn't even moving. There's nothing he could do. And then Geras just proceeded to use his spiny carapace and just smack him in the chest. And then he started flipping him over again. It's like, without any kind of thing to use for even just little bits of arms, like attached to the wings, that's all I want. Don't give him arms. I don't want him to have arms. But wings into arms, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
But he needs something, because granted, he wouldn't be as legendary if he didn't have some massive abilities, which he does, but he just needs something, because when his heads are pinned, there's nothing he can do.
I agree.
We gotta look at the, like, when that one came out, they had to be in the suit, and having that extra legs probably was kind of hard back then.
Well, yeah. Especially because they always had to deal with that, because there was...
You can see, like, where his suit is, like, completely. So.
Oh, yeah, the head's, like, the suit's, like, here with the head, and then the heads are, like, an extra 5 feet above them, so there really wasn't much they could do with that.
That's true.
But that's just what I would like to see for Ghidorah. Like,
I agree, that'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah, like, I would just love to see him like that.
But, so, is that, you got anything else to say about
I think that's pretty much it. I went on a lot of rants and tangents, so sorry about that.
That's okay. We're kind of hitting a high time, so we're gonna get ready to, get ready to stop it. But yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah,
it was interesting. Sorry, I didn't talk a whole lot. Like I said, I was kind of just there to prod Andrew about certain things and get him to talk more about certain aspects that he may have forgotten about or that I was curious about. Because once again, he's more the kaiju guy. But it was fun hearing it regardless. So, to everyone who decided to watch this instead of watching E3, thanks. I'm surprised you're here, but anyway. But anything you want to say before we?
I think that's about it.
All right. Well, this has been Animankai. So, as usual, keep it squirrely. Bye. Guess that calls it. That's it. That's all.